Hey, warrior, let's talk about something that keeps more people stuck than almost anything else. Your inability to say no. I'm not talking about the big no's, the life-changing decisions. I'm talking about the small ones, the daily ones, the ones that pile up over years until one day you look around and realize you're living a life you never chose, surrounded by people who take and take, running on empty, wondering how you got here. You know the feeling. Someone asks you for something, your time, your energy, your money, your attention. And before you can even think, your mouth opens and the word yes comes out. Not because you want to, not because you have it to give, but because saying no feels like a knife in your chest. What will they think? What if they get angry? What if they don't like me anymore? What if I'm being selfish? I've been there, more times than I can count. I remember sitting in my car outside my own apartment, dreading going inside because I knew my roommate would be there, and I knew he'd ask me for a favor I didn't want to give. Again, I sat there for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, practicing how to say no, rehearsing it in my head, trying to find the perfect words that would make him understand, make him not hate me, make it okay. And then I walked in, he asked, and I said yes. Before I could stop myself, before I could use any of those carefully rehearsed lines. Just yes. Automatic. Programmed. I hated myself that night. Not because of what he asked, because of what I did to myself. Because I chose his comfort over my own peace. Again. That's what this video is about. Not the theory of boundaries. The war inside you when you try to set them. The voices that tell you you're being cruel, selfish, difficult. The guilt that follows, the stories you tell yourself about what it means to be a good person. Because here's the truth they don't teach you. Boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're gates that you control. And without them, you don't become a better person. You become a resentful one. The ancient Stoics understood this, not as some abstract philosophy, but as survival. They lived in a world where people constantly demanded things from them: money, status, allegiance, silence, and they had to learn how to protect what mattered without losing themselves in the process. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. Everyone wanted something from him, every day. He couldn't escape it, and yet he found a way to remain himself. He wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't talking about controlling the empire. He was talking about controlling what he let in, what he agreed to, what he gave his energy to. That's what we're going to talk about today. 10 rules, not theory, not fluff. Real, messy, difficult truths about setting boundaries without feeling like a monster. If you're tired of being everyone's everything and no one's priority, this video is for you. Drop this in the comments right now. I protect my peace. Let's begin. Number 1. Other people's feelings are not your responsibility. Let me tell you about my friend Maya. Maya was the nicest person I knew. She never said no, ever. If you needed a ride at 2 a.m., Maya was there. If you needed to borrow money, Maya found a way. If you needed someone to listen to the same problem for the 5th time, Maya would nod and nod and nod until her neck hurt. Everyone loved Maya. She was the best friend, the best daughter, the best colleague. She won at being good. And then one day, Maya disappeared. Not literally, but something inside her shut down. She stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped showing up. And when I finally got her on the phone, she said something I'll never forget. "I don't know who I am anymore. I've spent so long being what everyone needs that there's nothing left of me." That's the cost. That's what happens when you make other people's feelings your responsibility. Think about the last time you said yes when you wanted to say no. What was driving that decision? Was it genuine desire to help, or was it fear? Fear of their disappointment, fear of their anger, fear of them thinking less of you, fear of being seen as selfish. You weren't protecting them. You were protecting yourself from their reaction, from their feelings, from the discomfort of watching them be upset with you. Here's what I had to learn the hard way. You can be the ripest, juiciest peach in the world, and there will still be people who don't like peaches. That's not about the peach. That's about them. Other people's feelings are not your responsibility. They're not. They never were. They never will be. You are responsible for your intentions, for your honesty, for your kindness, for communicating clearly and respectfully. That's it. How someone receives your no, how they feel about your boundary, whether they're disappointed, angry, or hurt, that's theirs. That's their work. That's their emotional journey. I'm not saying you should be cruel. I'm not saying you should delight in disappointing people. I'm saying you need to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Because here's what happens. You say yes when you mean no. You give when you have nothing left. You show up when you desperately need to rest. And over time, you become resentful. You start to hate the people you're helping. You start to feel used, even when they haven't done anything wrong. That resentment, that's on you. That's the price of not setting boundaries. The people who truly love you, they'll adjust. They'll figure it out. They might be disappointed at first. They might need time to process. But they'll respect you more in the long run because you respected yourself. And the ones who don't, the ones who get angry, who guilt trip you, who make you pay for saying no, they were never really your people. They were just using your inability to set boundaries as a way to get what they wanted. That's a hard truth. I know. I've lived it. So here's your practice. This week, find one small thing you can say no to. Just one. And when you do, notice what happens inside you. Notice the guilt, the fear, the urge to explain, justify, apologize. Sit with it. Let it be there and remind yourself their feelings are theirs, mine are mine. I am not responsible for both. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to stop carrying what isn't yours. I release responsibility for others' feelings. Number 2, every yes to something you don't want is a no to yourself. This one cuts deep because it's so easy to miss. You think you're being generous. You think you're being kind. You think you're just helping out, just being a good person, just doing what anyone would do. But every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're saying no to something else, something that matters, something that's yours. I learned this from a mentor years ago. I was complaining about how busy I was, how exhausted, how I never had time for the things I actually cared about. He looked at me and said, "Show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities." I showed him. He looked at it for about 10 seconds and said, "You don't have a time problem. You have a yes problem." He was right. Every meeting I didn't want to attend, every favor I didn't want to do, every event I felt obligated to show up to, they were all on my calendar. And the things I actually wanted, writing, rest, time with people I loved, they had no space because I'd given all the space away. Here's what the Stoics understood that most of us miss. Your energy is finite. Your time is limited. Your attention is precious. Every single yes is an investment of these resources. And if you're investing in things you don't care about, you're robbing the things you do. Seneca wrote about this. He said, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He wasn't just talking about distraction. He was talking about obligation, about saying yes to things that drain us because we're afraid of what saying no might cost. Think about what you said yes to this week. How many of those things actually align with what matters to you? How many were just you responding to someone else's agenda? I'm not saying you should never help anyone. I'm not saying every obligation is bad. I'm saying you need to be honest about what each yes costs. Because there's always a cost. Always. You might not feel it immediately. You might not notice it for months or years. But eventually, all those yeses add up. And one day you wake up and realize you've said yes to everyone except yourself. The Stoics called this living according to nature. Living in alignment with your values, your purpose, your deepest self. Not being pulled in 100 directions by everyone else's demands. So here's a question I want you to sit with. What are you saying yes to that's costing you yourself? Maybe it's the committee you joined out of guilt, the friendship that's been one-sided for years, the family obligations that drain you every holiday, the extra work you take on because you can't stand the thought of disappointing your boss. Every yes to those things is a no to your peace, your rest, your creativity, your health, your real priorities. And here's the killer. The people you're saying yes to, They're not thinking about you. They're not considering what it costs you. They're just asking for what they want. That's fine. That's human. But you're the only one who can protect what's yours. So before you say yes to anything, pause. Ask yourself, what am I saying no to by saying yes to this? And is that trade worth it? Sometimes it will be. Sometimes helping a friend in crisis is worth sacrificing your rest. Sometimes showing up for family is worth more than your plans. I'm not saying never sacrifice. I'm saying make it a conscious choice, not an automatic reaction. Don't let your life be just the leftovers of everyone else's demands. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to protect your yeses. My yes is precious. I choose wisely. Number 3, the discomfort of setting a boundary is temporary. The resentment of not setting it is permanent. This is the one I wish someone had told me 20 years ago. Because here's what happens when you don't set a boundary. You say yes, you do the thing, it's fine, maybe even good. But inside something shifts. A tiny seed of resentment gets planted. You tell yourself it's nothing. It's just one time. No big deal. But then it happens again and again. And each time that seed gets watered, it grows roots. It becomes a vine that wraps around your heart and squeezes. I had a friend once. Good guy. But he had a habit of calling late at night after I'd already wound down, already gotten comfortable, already started my transition into sleep. And he'd want to talk for hours about the same problems, the same frustrations, the same cycles. I never told him no. I never said, hey, I need to sleep. Can we talk tomorrow? I just stayed on the phone, getting more and more tired, more and more resentful, less and less present. And over time, I started to hate him, not for anything he did, for what I let him do, for my own inability to set a simple boundary. That's the poison. That's what happens when you don't speak up. The resentment doesn't go toward the situation. It goes toward the person. And eventually, it destroys relationships that could have been saved by a single honest conversation. The Stoics understood this. They knew that unspoken truths fester. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. But you can't revoke what you never acknowledged. You can't release resentment you don't admit you're carrying. So let me ask you, who are you resenting right now because you haven't set a boundary with them? Who are you silently punishing for things they don't even know they're doing? Because here's the truth. They don't know. They can't read your mind. They're just living their life, being themselves, asking for what they want. And you're over there building a case against them for things they're completely unaware of. That's not fair to them or to you. The discomfort of setting a boundary, it's real. It's uncomfortable. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your mind spins with all the ways it could go wrong. What if they get angry? What if they don't understand? What if it changes everything? But here's what I've learned. That discomfort lasts about 5 minutes, maybe 10, maybe an hour if it's a really hard conversation. But then it's over. You said it, you did it, and the world didn't end. The resentment of not setting the boundary? That lasts forever. It grows. It poisons everything. It turns love into obligation, friendship into duty, connection into burden. I'm not saying every boundary conversation is easy. Some of them are brutal. Some of them change things permanently. Some of them end relationships. But here's what I know for sure. The relationships that end because you set a boundary, they weren't real relationships. They were transactions. They were one person using another. And when the using stops, the relationship ends. That's not loss. That's clarity. The relationships that survive boundaries, those are the real ones. Those are the people who actually care about you, not just what you can do for them. So here's your practice. Think of one boundary you've been avoiding. Just one, and set it this week. Not aggressively, not punitively, just clearly, kindly, honestly. And then notice what happens. Notice the temporary discomfort, and notice how much lighter you feel on the other side. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to trade temporary discomfort for permanent freedom. I choose honesty over resentment. Number 4, You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. This might be the hardest truth of all, because it puts the responsibility right back on you. I used to complain about certain people in my life. The friend who always interrupted, the colleague who dumped work on me, the family member who made everything about them. And I'd tell myself they were just selfish, just clueless, just bad people. But here's what I eventually had to admit. I taught them it was okay. Every time I let the friend interrupt without saying anything, I taught them my words weren't important. Every time I took on extra work without pushing back, I taught my colleague I was available for dumping. Every time I listened to the family member monologue without redirecting, I taught them their needs mattered more than mine. People aren't mind readers. They learn what's acceptable by what we accept. And if we never say anything, if we never push back, if we just keep taking it, we're giving them a lesson. A terrible one. We're teaching them that this is who we are, that we don't have limits, that we're okay with being treated this way. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. He meant that your reaction is yours to control. But I think it also applies here. Your tolerance is yours to control. What you allow is what will continue. Think about a relationship in your life that feels unbalanced, where you give more than you receive, where your needs consistently take a back seat, where you feel taken for granted. Now ask yourself, what have I done to change it? What boundaries have I set? What conversations have I had? What lines have I drawn? If the answer is nothing, then you're not a victim. You're a volunteer. I know that sounds harsh. I know because I had to say it to myself. And it stung. It stung because I wanted to believe I was just a good person being taken advantage of by bad people. I didn't want to admit that I was complicit, that my silence was permission, that my tolerance was teaching. But here's the thing. Once you accept that you teach people how to treat you, you also realize you have the power to reteach them. You can change the lesson. You can start communicating differently. You can start setting limits. You can start showing people what's acceptable and what's not. It won't happen overnight. People who are used to you having no boundaries will be confused, even angry, when you start setting them. They'll test you. They'll push back. They'll try to return to the old dynamic. But if you stay consistent, something shifts. They learn, they adjust. They start treating you differently because you've taught them a new lesson. And the ones who won't adjust, the ones who only want the old you, the one with no boundaries, the one who always said yes, they'll leave. And that's not a loss. That's a gift, because they were never really there for you. They were there for what you gave them. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. So what are you teaching right now? Drop this in the comments if you're ready to change the lesson. I teach respect by what I tolerate. Number 5, your no doesn't need a novel attached. This one took me years to learn. I used to think that if I said no, I needed to explain myself thoroughly, completely, with enough detail that the other person would understand, would agree, would validate my decision. I'd spend hours crafting the perfect explanation. I'd anticipate their objections and prepare counterarguments. I'd try to make my no so reasonable, so justified, so impossible to argue with, that they'd have no choice but to accept it. And you know what happened? It never worked. They always found something to push back on, some hole in my explanation, some reason why my reasons weren't good enough, some way to keep the conversation going, keep the negotiation alive, keep trying to turn my no into a yes. Because here's what I didn't understand. When you over-explain, you invite debate. You're essentially saying, here are my reasons. Now you can argue with them. You're treating your no as something that needs to be justified, as if your preferences aren't reason enough. The Stoics had a different approach. They understood that your choices are yours. You don't need anyone's permission or approval. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And one of the biggest wastes? Explaining yourself to people who will never be satisfied. A simple no is complete. It's a full sentence. It doesn't need a paragraph of justification. No, I can't do that. No, that doesn't work for me. No, I'm not available. That's it. That's enough. If the other person is reasonable, they'll accept it. If they push, If they demand explanations, if they try to negotiate, that tells you something about them. It tells you they don't respect your number. And that's information you need to have. I'm not saying you should never explain. Sometimes context helps. Sometimes people genuinely want to understand. Sometimes a brief explanation maintains connection and clarity. But notice the difference between offering context and defending your decision. One is generous, the other is desperate. One comes from a place of strength, the other from a place of fear. Here's a simple rule I started using. If the answer is no, I say no. If they ask why, I decide whether to share. Not because I owe them an explanation, but because I choose to offer one. And if they argue with my explanation, I don't engage. I just repeat the number. No, I can't. But why not? I'm not available. That's not a real reason. It's the only reason I need. No, couple at first. It feels rude. It feels like you're being cold. But it's not cold. It's clear. And clarity is kindness. Clarity is respect. Clarity is better than a long, rambling explanation that gives false hope and invites negotiation. Your number is complete. It doesn't need a novel attached. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to keep it simple. My no is complete. Number 6. Boundaries reveal who's really in your corner. This is the part nobody warns you about. When you start setting boundaries, people react. And how they react tells you everything you need to know about them. Some people will surprise you. They'll listen. They'll adjust. They'll say, I never realized. Thanks for telling me. I'll do better. Those people are keepers. They care about you, not just what you do for them. Other people will react differently. They'll get defensive. They'll accuse you of changing, of being selfish, of not caring anymore. They'll guilt trip you. They'll make your boundary about them. I remember setting a boundary with someone I'd known for years. I told them I couldn't keep doing something I'd been doing for them regularly. It was draining me. I needed to stop. Their response? Silence. Then a cold, fine, I guess I know where I stand. That hurt. It hurt a lot. I spent days questioning myself. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I should have kept doing it. Maybe I'd ruined the friendship. But here's what I eventually realized. Their reaction told me everything. They weren't upset about losing our connection. They were upset about losing what I did for them. The friendship was conditional on my usefulness. And when the usefulness ended, the friendship ended. That's not friendship. That's transaction. The Stoics understood this. They knew that most people are driven by self-interest. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not because everyone is bad, because that's what people do when they don't get what they want. Boundaries are a filter. They separate the people who love you from the people who love what you do for them. They reveal who's really in your corner. And here's the hard part. Some of the people who fail the test will be people you really care about. Family, longtime friends, people you've invested years in. Watching them choose their comfort over your well-being hurts. It hurts a lot. But it's also liberating because now you know. Now you can stop investing in relationships that were never really reciprocal. Now you can redirect your energy toward people who actually value you. The ones who stay? The ones who respect your boundaries and work to maintain connection? Those are your people. Those are the ones worth your time. So pay attention, set your boundaries, and watch who stays. That's your real circle. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to see who's really there. Boundaries reveal, I pay attention. Number 7, you can't save people by drowning with them. This one is for the rescuers, the helpers, the ones who can't stand to see someone struggle. I know you. I am you. When someone's in pain, you want to fix it. When someone's struggling, you want to carry them. When someone's drowning, you jump in without thinking. But here's what I learned the hard way. If you jump in to save someone who's drowning and you don't have a solid place to stand, you both drown. I had a friend going through a hard time, really hard. Their life was falling apart, and I was there. Every day, every call, every crisis. I listened for hours. I gave advice. I helped with practical things. I was the best friend anyone could ask for. And slowly, imperceptibly, their crisis became my crisis. Their anxiety became my anxiety. Their hopelessness became my hopelessness. I stopped sleeping well, stopped focusing on my own life, stopped taking care of myself because I was so busy taking care of them. And one day, I realized I had nothing left to give. Not to them, not to myself, not to anyone. That's when I understood. You can't save someone by joining them in the water. You can only save them from solid ground. And maintaining solid ground requires boundaries. The Stoics had a concept called sympathia, the idea that we're all connected, all part of the same whole. But they also understood that your first duty is to your own character, your own well-being, your own capacity to help. Epictetus said, if you want to do good, first be good. You can't give what you don't have. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't save anyone if you're drowning too. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you abandon people in need. It means you help from a place of strength, not from a place of depletion. It means you set limits so you can sustain your support over time, not burn out in a week. It means you learn to say, I can't do that right now, but I can do this. I can't talk for an hour, but I can talk for 20 minutes. I can't solve your problem, but I can sit with you while you figure it out. Boundaries aren't rejection. They're sustainability. They're how you stay in the game long enough to actually make a difference. So if you're a rescuer, hear this. The people you're trying to save need you strong, not depleted. They need you present, not burned out. They need you for the long haul, not just for today. Set boundaries so you can keep showing up, not less, longer. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to help from solid ground. I save from strength, not from drowning. Number 8, guilt is not a compass. This might be the most important thing I say in this entire video. When you start setting boundaries, you're going to feel guilty. It's going to wash over you like a wave. You're going to question yourself. You're going to wonder if you're being selfish, cruel, unloving. I want you to hear this clearly. Guilt is not a compass. It's not pointing you toward truth. It's just pointing you toward where you've been conditioned to feel bad. We're taught from childhood that good people give, that loving people sacrifice, that saying no means you're not those things. So when you finally say no, when you finally set a boundary, all that conditioning floods your system. Guilt, shame, self-doubt. But here's what I learned. Guilt is often the price of growth. It's the fee you pay for taking back your life. And like any fee, you pay it and move on. You don't let it stop you. The Stoics distinguished between productive and unproductive emotions. Some emotions guide you toward wisdom. Others just keep you stuck. Guilt about hurting someone unnecessarily? That's worth paying attention to. Guilt about disappointing someone who's used to you having no boundaries? That's just noise. I felt guilty for months when I started setting boundaries. Every no came with a side of shame. Every limit I set was accompanied by an internal voice telling me I was a bad person. But I kept going, because I knew that voice wasn't wisdom. It was conditioning. It was the ghost of the people pleaser I used to be. And over time, the guilt faded. Not completely. It still shows up sometimes, but it's quieter now. Easier to ignore. Because I've learned that guilt isn't a compass, it's just a feeling. And feelings pass. So when you feel guilty about a boundary, ask yourself, is this guilt telling me something real? Or is it just an old program running? Am I actually hurting someone? Or am I just disappointing their expectations? If it's the first, adjust. If it's the second, breathe through it. Let the guilt be there without letting it control you. You're not a bad person for having limits. You're a healthy person. And healthy people sometimes disappoint others. That's not cruelty, that's clarity. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to feel the guilt and do it anyway. Guilt is not my compass. Number 9, the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind. This is one of those sayings that sounds simple, but holds deep truth. When you start setting boundaries, you're going to find out who's who. The people who genuinely care about you, they'll adjust. They might need time. They might have feelings about it. But ultimately, they want you in their life more than they want you to do things for them. The people who only value you for what you provide, they'll react differently. They'll push back. They'll guilt you. They'll make your boundary about them. I had a friend once who I'd known since childhood. When I started setting boundaries, he got angry, told me I'd changed, said I wasn't the person he used to know. He was right. I wasn't. I was someone who no longer accepted being treated like a doormat. And that version of me wasn't useful to him anymore. It hurt. It hurt a lot. We'd been friends for over 20 years, but his reaction told me something I needed to know. Our friendship was based on what I did for him, not who I was to him. And when the doing stopped, the friendship stopped. That's not a loss. That's information. The people who matter, they'll surprise you. They'll say things like, I never realized I was putting you in that position. I'm glad you told me. They'll respect your no. They'll work to maintain connection even when you can't give them what they want. Those are your people. Those are the ones worth investing in. So here's your practice. Set your boundaries, and then watch. Pay attention to who stays and who goes, who adjusts and who accuses, who respects you and who resents you. The ones who leave, let them. They were never really yours. The ones who stay, hold them close. They're your real community. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to let the truth reveal itself. I let the right people stay and the wrong people go. Number 10, boundaries are an act of love. This is the final truth, the one that reframes everything. We've talked about boundaries as protection, as self-respect, as clarity. But here's what I want you to understand most of all. Boundaries are an act of love. Love for yourself, yes, but also love for others. Because here's what happens when you don't have boundaries. You become resentful. You become distant. You become a version of yourself that's half present, half giving, half loving. You show up, but not fully. You give, but with resentment. You're there, but you wish you weren't. Is that love? Is that real connection? No. It's obligation dressed up as care. It's duty pretending to be devotion. When you set boundaries, you become someone who can actually show up, fully, willingly, with presence instead of resentment, with generosity instead of obligation. You become someone whose yes means something because your no means something too. The Stoics understood this. They knew that virtue isn't about endless giving. It's about giving wisely, giving from a place of strength, giving in alignment with your values. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." You're part of the whole. Your well-being matters, not just for you, but for everyone you touch. When you take care of yourself, you have more to give. When you protect your energy, you can show up more fully. When you set boundaries, you become a better friend, partner, parent, colleague. That's love, real love, sustainable love. So as you go forward, remember this. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They let the right things in and keep the wrong things out. They protect what matters so you can give what matters. You're not being selfish. You're being honest. You're not being cruel. You're being clear. You're not pushing people away. You're creating the conditions for real connection. And that's one of the most loving things you can do. Drop this in the comments if you're ready to love well. Boundaries or love. So here we stand. 10 rules. 10 truths that can change how you move through relationships, how you protect your peace, how you show up in the world. Let's recap them one more time. Number 1, other people's feelings are not your responsibility. Number 2, every yes to something you don't want is a no to yourself. Number 3, the discomfort of setting a boundary is temporary. The resentment of not setting it is permanent. Number 4, you teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Number 5, your no doesn't need a novel attached. Number 6, boundaries reveal who's really in your corner. Number 7, you can't save people by drowning with them. Number 8, guilt is not a compass. Number 9, the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind. Number 10, boundaries are an act of love. These aren't just ideas, they're practices. They're muscles you build over time. You won't get it right every time. You'll slip back into old patterns. You'll feel guilty. You'll doubt yourself. That's okay. That's human. Just keep coming back. Keep practicing. Keep setting those small boundaries, one at a time until they become natural. The people who love you will adjust. The ones who don't will reveal themselves. And you'll find yourself living a life that's actually yours, surrounded by people who actually see you. That's worth the discomfort. That's worth the guilt. That's worth the hard conversations. You can do this. I know you can. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button. Not for me, as a commitment to yourself. Drop a comment and tell me which rule hit you hardest. I read them. I'm with you. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been giving too much for too long. Subscribe because this journey continues, and growth is always stronger together than alone. One final time, drop this affirmation in the comments to seal it. I set boundaries without guilt. I protect my peace. I love well. Your life is waiting for you. Go live it.